Nick Valentine is one of the most iconic characters in all of Fallout. He is one of the most lovable synths in the universe, and his backstory is one of the most interesting you can discover as well. His role in the game is well written, and honestly, he is one of my personal favorite characters in Fallout lore. Today, on Poseidon Films, we explore the life and lore of Nick Valentine as a part of our Fallout lore series. If you love these videos, then I put our playlist with the rest of our Fallout videos in the description down below, and you should check it out. Long believed to be a prototype caught in the evolution between the Institute's second and third generation synth developments, Nick Valentine thought his sapient intelligence and lack of inherent hostility toward non-Institute humans were anomalies, perhaps due to his unique position as a transitional model. However, the truth of Nick's origins runs deeper, revealing a past that stretches back over a century before the year 2287, buried within the secretive halls of the Institute. Nick Valentine wasn't just a prototype, he was one of the very first Gen 2 synths, created to test the boundaries of independent thought and synthetic personality. Alongside him was another prototype named Dima. While Dima was allowed to develop his own personality based on personal experience, Nick's mind was shaped by artificial memories, recordings of a pre-war human, a man who once walked the streets as a police officer before the bombs fell. The Institute's goal was clear: to see how these early synths could handle the complexities of thought, emotion, and identity. For years, Nick endured endless experiments. The scientists at the Institute loaded him with a variety of personalities and memories, each one pushing the limits of his synthetic mind. Despite the cold and clinical nature of these experiments, something unexpected happened. Nick and Dima began to develop a bond. As the first and only synths of their kind, they grew close, almost like brothers, united by the shared trauma of their existence as subjects in the Institute's grand experiment. But this bond was not enough to hold back the growing resentment that festered within Dima. The endless tampering with their minds, the forced personalities, and the constant questioning of their own identities took its toll. Dima, driven by a desire for autonomy and freedom, began to resent the Institute for what it was doing to them, what it was turning them into. Eventually, the two synths found the strength to escape from their captors, breaking free from the Institute's control, but their freedom came at a cost. Before they could fully escape, the Institute managed to upload yet another new personality and set of memories into Nick's synthetic mind. When he awoke, he no longer recognized the brother who had shared his journey. Instead, Nick Valentine believed himself to be a pre-war police officer who had somehow been thrust 200 years into the future. This new personality, dominated by the memories of the human Nick Valentine, led him to view Dima as a stranger, or worse, a threat. In his confusion, Nick attacked Dima, forcing his brother to defend himself. Dima, heartbroken but determined to survive, knocked Nick unconscious and left him behind, a painful but necessary choice. When Nick finally regained consciousness, he found himself alone, buried in a pile of garbage in a world he did not understand. The memories of his brother, of their shared escape, and of their life within the Institute gradually faded away, overwhelmed by the implanted memories of the human Nick Valentine. For weeks, he wandered the wasteland, struggling to reconcile the fragments of his past with the harsh reality of his present. As time passed, the memories of Dima, the brother who had been his only companion in the cold, sterile corridors of the Institute, were lost entirely. All that remained was the identity of Nick Valentine, the pre-war detective trying to make sense of a world that had moved on without him. The man he believed himself to be had no place in the synthetic body he now inhabited, yet he persisted, driven by a sense of duty and justice that had been imprinted deep within his artificial mind. In a world filled with lost souls, Nick Valentine became a beacon of hope, using the skills and instincts of a long-dead police officer to help those in need. But deep within his circuits, buried beneath layers of forgotten memories, lingered the remnants of another life. A life shared with a brother who was lost to time, and a past that would never be fully reclaimed. In the early days after his escape from the Institute, Nick Valentine was a figure shrouded in mystery and fear among the Wastelanders. The people of the Commonwealth, unfamiliar with the Institute's advanced technology, regarded Nick with a mix of awe and suspicion. To many, he was more machine than man, a mechanical monstrosity whose very presence was a reminder of the shadowy powers that lurked beneath the surface of their world. Yet, despite the wariness he encountered, Nick's journey through the wasteland eventually led him to a small, isolated community where his fortunes began to change. In this settler's settlement, Nick found something he hadn't experienced since his escape: acceptance. The community's mechanic, seeing beyond Nick's synthetic exterior, offered to repair the damage Nick had sustained during his travels. This act of kindness was the first step in a gradual transformation in how Nick saw himself and how others saw him. During his time in the settlement, Nick formed a bond with a young boy named Jim, marking the first meaningful human connection he had since fleeing the Institute. To Nick, this community was more than just a place to rest. It was a sanctuary where he was treated as a person rather than a machine. For the first time, he was seen as something more than just a product of the Institute's experiments. However, Nick's restless nature eventually drove him to leave the settlement and continue his wandering. The call of the unknown, the need to understand the world around him, and perhaps a subconscious desire to make sense of his fragmented memories all pushed him forward. Years later, when Nick attempted to return to the community that had shown him such kindness, he was met with a devastating sight. The settlement had been destroyed, razed to the ground by raiders. The people who had treated him with humanity were gone, their lives snuffed out by the brutality of the wasteland. This loss was a harsh reminder of the world he lived in, a place where even the smallest flicker of hope could be extinguished in an instant. Nick's journey eventually led him to Diamond City, the so-called Great Green Jewel of the Commonwealth. Diamond City was a place rife with tension, its people harboring a deep-seated hatred for the Institute and their synth creations. The trauma of the massacre of the Commonwealth Provisional Government and the infamous Broken Mask incident had left the citizens deeply suspicious of anything associated with the Institute. When Nick arrived, he was met with the same fear and mistrust that had followed him since his escape. But fate had other plans for Nick Valentine. Despite the hostility he faced, Nick inadvertently found himself in a position to change how the people of Diamond City viewed him. The daughter of Henry Roberts, the city's mayor at the time, had run away with a caravan trader, an event that quickly spiraled into a dangerous situation. Unbeknownst to the young girl, the trader and his companions were not who they claimed to be. They were kidnappers, and she soon found herself taken hostage. By sheer coincidence, Nick stumbled upon the scene, walking into the middle of the tense standoff. Surrounded by armed kidnappers and with the girl's life on the line, Nick acted quickly. Drawing on his pre-war police instincts, he devised a bluff that only a man out of time could have concocted. Knowing that his synthetic nature frightened people, Nick claimed to have a bomb implanted inside him, one that could detonate at any moment. To sell the ruse, he began making beeping sounds, quite literally saying the word beep repeatedly. The absurdity of the situation, combined with Nick's unwavering confidence, was enough to scare the kidnappers into fleeing, leaving the girl unharmed. This act of bravery, though unconventional, earned Nick something he had been searching for since the day he woke up in the wasteland: respect. The people of Diamond City, still wary of the Institute, began to see Nick not as a threat, but as a hero. He had saved the mayor's daughter, and in doing so, he had saved himself from the fate of being shunned and feared. Nick Valentine, the synth who had once been regarded as a mechanical monster, was now seen as a protector, a detective with a heart, even if that heart was made of circuits and wires. When the mayor's daughter explained what had happened to her, Nick Valentine immediately took her back to her father, Henry Roberts. Grateful for her safe return, the mayor rewarded Nick with a house in Diamond City. Despite objections from some of the city's more suspicious citizens, Nick understood their fears but didn't let them deter him. To earn their trust, he offered his services as the city's handyman, fixing broken appliances and helping with odd jobs around town. However, it wasn't long before his true talents became apparent when he solved a particularly tricky case of a missing woman. The woman, presumed dead, was actually very much alive, having run away with her lover. Nick's sharp detective skills were undeniable, and as word spread, more and more citizens came to him, not for handyman work, but to help track down missing loved ones and solve mysteries that others couldn't. As his reputation as a detective grew, Nick decided to make it official and founded the Valentine Detective Agency. The cases began pouring in, so much so that he eventually hired a secretary, Ellie Perkins, to help him manage the workload. With Ellie's assistance, the agency became a fixture in Diamond City, with Nick taking on the role of the city's private investigator, someone the people could turn to in their time of need. Not all of Nick's partnerships were as successful as his collaboration with Ellie. At one point, he teamed up with Marty Bullfinch, though their partnership was rocky at best due to Marty's struggles with alcoholism. The two eventually parted ways on less than friendly terms. Still, Marty later returned to the agency and left a holotape detailing his latest scheme, uncovering the treasure of Shem Drown by retrieving the gilded grasshopper from Faneuil Hall. Marty hoped Nick might be interested in the adventure, even though their last encounter hadn't ended well. Nick also had another memorable case involving a fisherman named Kenji Nakano. The case led them on a search for a lost heirloom, using Kenji's boat to navigate the treacherous waters. Unfortunately, the mission ended badly when the client double-crossed them, leading to Kenji being shot in the hip, with the bullet lodged inside even after he healed. Despite the injury, Kenji held no ill will towards Nick and appreciated the detective's efforts. In fact, when Kenji's daughter went missing years later, he didn't hesitate to turn to Nick for help, trusting him more than anyone else to find her. A few weeks before the sole survivor emerged from Vault 111, Nick took on another case, this time involving a missing woman named Darla. She was believed to have been kidnapped by Skinny Malone, a notorious gang boss and an old acquaintance of Nick's. Tracking the case to the Park Street station, which led to Vault 114 beneath it, Nick discovered a surprising truth. Darla hadn't been kidnapped at all. She had willingly joined Skinny and his gang, who had taken over the vault as their new hideout. Nick's attempt to confront Skinny and resolve the situation didn't go as planned. Outnumbered and outgunned, Nick was incapacitated and imprisoned in the Vault Overseer's office by Skinny's gang, the Triggermen. It wasn't until the sole survivor, searching for their missing son Sean, came to Vault 114 that Nick was freed. The sole survivor fought through the Triggermen, eventually rescuing Nick and enlisting his help in their own search. Nick Valentine's journey from a feared outsider to one of Diamond City's most respected figures is a testament to his resilience and unwavering commitment to helping others. Despite the hardships and dangers he faced, Nick never wavered in his mission to bring justice and closure to those who needed it, solidifying his place as a hero in the eyes of the Commonwealth's people. That is the tale of Nick Valentine. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate you taking a second to press the like button and leave a comment below. Like I said, if you like Fallout lore videos, you should check out the playlist in the description, and also subscribe because we post a lot of Fallout lore alongside other gaming content you might find interesting. Thank you all so much for watching.